What's up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the NeoVintage podcast. I'm Jabril, and I'm with
Steve. Hope everyone's doing well.
And for you guys who have never seen the show before, we're just two guys that like to talk over the biggest stories in gaming, and we always like to start with what we've been playing. So, Steve, tell me what you've been playing.
So yeah, I've been kind of lowering the amount of time I've been playing things. Obviously, trying to, the way I've been saying, I've been on a game diet because new hardware is coming. So obviously, we've been playing a lot of stuff there. So still just a lot of little things. I jumped into Ghost of Tsushima. I meant to go play the multiplayer, but decided to familiarize myself with the controls again really quick, and then I've just
I did the same thing.
Yeah, I just kind of just trophy hunting though. I was like, well, let me get some more shrines, doing things, and I still love that game. Everything we've praised that game for, I still feel to the point where I was able to just kind of jump back in, got the hang of it. Taking down Mongol territories and stuff like that. So that's still fantastic. Then just Halloween season just passed. So I was in Animal Crossing decorating my village. Did the whole trick or treat session, which was kind of fun actually, especially in a world where we couldn't really do Halloween, the quote unquote right way. So just doing light things. Then on Switch, which ties in a little bit later, I am playing No More Heroes on Switch because they finally released that. So I'm just playing the first one right now. Obviously gonna play them in order as they come. And yeah, I've been wanting these games ported to the Switch for a long time. It's been a long time since I've been able to play these games, and they hold up well. I mean, the price is right. Right now they're $17.99. If you want to buy them, they're that price until November 15th. Then they're gonna go up to $19.99. So it's not like the biggest price hike, but so it's that right sweet spot for such an old game, short game. It's still sort of like I always call it like a light hack and slash because it doesn't have as like content filled and combo wise as other games, but it's still fun to see Travis back, obviously, and it's exciting to finally be able to play those games on modern hardware, not being, before you'd have to hook up your original Wii to play these or your Wii U. So that's all I've been really playing. I've also been playing, just a quick mention. I was for some reason can't pronounce it. The Genshin Impact.
Oh yes.
Anime Breath of the Wild. Yeah. So It's there. It's obviously, everyone calls it, Anime Breath of the Wild, and it really is pretty much that. A little bit too close to it sometimes, even to the point where you're jumping with the paraglider, things like that. And it's interesting that so much of the game is free. Obviously, it has a lot of gacha mechanics and microtransactions and stuff like that. None that have been too overwhelming for me. Like, I don't even think a screen's, like, I found the marketplace, but none of those things have been like roadblocked to me yet, so I'm surprised how much is free. Like, you can get pretty deep, and I know other people have been talking about it, where you can get pretty deep without having to do any microtransactions or pay out of pocket. But it's a nice little game. I'm playing it on my phone right now because it's cross save with PC, so eventually maybe I'll get it on PC. I know it's not cross save with PS4 right now, and it will be cross save for Switch when it comes out, some weird stuff like that. But it's kind of just scratching a little bit of that Breath of the Wild feel without having to launch Breath of the Wild again, because that's a whole big journey, 200-hour journey to restart. So that's all I've been. The only other thing I kind of just dabbled in, which was 2 demos, Bravely Second, Bravely Default 2. Wait, no, I always get these titles confused. Bravely Default 2, right?
2, yeah.
Bravely Second was the other one. So I tried that demo out very quickly. I don't have too much to say because I really tried just like one battle, some of the mechanics, and then I left it. I want to try a little bit more. And then I also tried the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity demo.
Me too. Yep.
Which I'm positive on. I kind of like it. I see, at the heart it's still a Warriors game, but I do like some of the Zelda spin-off like mechanics on it. So what have you been up to? What have you been playing?
Yeah, so I've been playing, a ton of stuff, but it's mostly been like Switch season for me. I've been playing a lot of Switch, and the main reason for that is non-Switch stuff, like most notably like Watch Dogs just came out. Honestly, I kind of looked at the game, I'm like, I don't want to play that on current gen hardware, just keeping it honest with myself. So that's something I was like, you know what, they just pushed off Cyberpunk. We'll talk about that later, and I'll cry about that later.
Yeah.
That opened up a lot of space for me. So once I'm done with, Miles and Assassin's Creed, I'll be able to jump into Watch Dogs easily there. I just don't want to play that on current gen hardware, to be honest. So I was like, you know what? Let me focus on a whole bunch of Switch stuff that's coming out lately. But also, I did want to note that on Friday night and Saturday night, I actually did jump into Little Hope, which is the Dark Pictures anthology, like the second game in it after Man of Medan.
Okay.
So we did beat it. Again, it's close to like 4 or 5 hour experiences. They're not too long. $30. Depending on how much replayability will kind of affect how much that's worth it to you. To be honest, I played it with my girlfriend and we kind of passed the controller back and forth, and it's built like that too. You can do a movie night, and it basically, you choose a certain amount of characters you control, they choose a certain amount of characters they control, and then when it's time to control the other character, the screen flashes with the other person's name, and then you pass the controller to them. So it's really, really awesome the way they designed it like that. But yeah, it's called Little Hope. Had a good time with it, generally speaking. I think it's a lot better than Man of Medan, to be honest.
Okay.
It's still not touching Until Dawn. Let's get that established. They're still not even close to hitting the Until Dawn thing. I think the worst thing about Little Hope, to be honest, is just the character. I found a lot of the characters this time pretty unlikable. There was nobody really that I liked this time, whereas opposed to like Man of Medan, where I didn't love the scenario, but some of the characters were pretty interesting, and specifically the dynamics between them because they were so different. This time, a lot of the characters were fairly like insufferable people, like off rip. Everybody was kind of unpleasant, so I'm kind of sitting there like, oh god. Yeah. And the problem with that is games like this are kind of built upon you wanting to survive. But when people are like, every person kind of feels like an a-hole, it kind of lessens your want to try hard to keep them alive. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that was like the main critique I'd say of it, and I feel like they're still falling short a little bit of an Until Dawn. But generally speaking, I enjoyed it. I like what they're doing with the anthology. You see small little connections between stuff you saw with like Man of Medan and stuff like that, and they have this general narrator who kind of branches everything together because he was also in Man of Medan. So there's a lot of cool things to like about it. Also, at the end, just like Man of Medan did, after the credits, they advertised the next one that they're going to be releasing. And that one's kind of interesting because it plays around more with like Sumerian culture, and it's in the desert. So that one I'm like way more excited about.
Is there a title for that one?
Yes, but let me see if I could find it for you. But yeah, man, I would say if you can find this for a reduced price, then I'd say go for it. But I have trouble kind of recommending it at $30. To be honest, it's a little steep for me. Okay. Let me find the next game name for you. House of Ashes, it's called.
Okay. Kind of like that title too.
Yeah, so it's taking place in the desert. It's a very different environment. And for you guys who don't know, Man of Medan takes place on a haunted like ship, like a World War II ship. Little Hope takes place in kind of like an abandoned town, but it plays a lot with like puritanical culture, like the witch trial era. So it was perfect to play for Halloween. And then this one is taking place in the desert. So I like that how much they're differentiating themselves from each other. Because again, I always got nervous with them kind of playing around with like teen horror, for example, or in like slasher horror, because they did that so well in Until Dawn. And it seems like Supermassive has done a pretty decent job of keeping like a little bit of distance in terms of some of the narrative threads they've established. Also, again, I guess I can go back to the Switch games I've been playing. 2 demos and 2 games. So the demos are, I did try out the Control Cloud version demo that was out that they announced. And the interesting thing is when you went into there, you actually went into a queue, and I was like 75 or something like that, but it moved in pretty decent time. I only waited for probably 5 to 6 minutes because, again, it's a cloud service, so you have to wait, I guess, for their servers to open up some space for it. And I have to say, and be completely honest, I was really impressed with the tech. It was running surprisingly well. To be honest, the fact that it's kind of server-based and cloud-based, actually, in some of the combat moments when my internet could handle it, which it was generally, handling it pretty well. And I went for the performance mode, not for the graphical mode.
Yeah.
And the graphics still look very solid. Again, it's a 720p screen, but it looked full resolution. I wasn't seeing any kind of like stream buffer weird, checkering thing. The resolution was high. It looked good. It played good. And the funny thing is, it actually played kind of better than when I played it on Xbox. And the reason for that is I'm assuming that whoever is doing the cloud version might be running a like higher end PC build of it. It is the the ultimate version. And I played the kind of bare bones launch version on Xbox, and I played it on a 1S, not a 1X.
Okay.
So in some ways, it was actually playing a little bit better than the Xbox version. But again, there is like some degree of input lag, and there was some points where like the camera got a little wonky. But generally speaking, I have to say the game was fully playable. Like I could definitely have made it through the game pretty easily that way. So, and that's really, really impressive. I'd never, I mean, at least in the next few years, not have thought that this was possible on Switch, but they pulled it off, to be honest with you. Again, it was a 5-minute demo, so I can only speak from that perspective. Who knows how it is once you actually get to the more demanding parts and start using like levitation and all this kind of stuff, how it's going to run then. But from what I was able to experience for that 5 minutes, it ran really, really well. So I was impressed. Next one, Hyrule Warriors. You spoke about it as well. I liked it quite a bit, to be honest with you. I was very apprehensive going into it because I do not like Musou games really at all. I used to play Dynasty Warriors like a while ago, and I kind of liked it then, but the giant wave of enemy thing has just never really been my cup of tea. And I knew the first Hyrule Warriors had a bit of performance issues, kind of across the board, and kind of a lot of these Musou games, their frame rates get a little wonky because of the sheer amount of activity going on screen. But I would say, generally speaking, this game, it ran well. I love that there's so much plot in it, and the interesting thing about it is this is kind of what I wanted from Breath of the Wild, is for them to be able to explore a lot of how that early world looked like before the calamity happened.
Yeah. And
all these different characters actually being alive and interacting and, things happening. And, this game is kind of allowing for that to be more fleshed out. So I think I'm really, really excited about this game. And it went from, oh, yeah, I'll get it, and I'll play it when I play it, to like, oh, no, I actually really want to jump into this, and I really want to see. Because I see that they're doing a lot more with the plot than I thought. They actually had, like, the king talking to some degree. They had all these side characters and Impa and stuff like that. So I really like what they were doing. And I also had a little bit of concerns about the graphical fidelity because, yes, it's cel-shaded, but Breath of the Wild had such a clean look to it that I was afraid that if Nintendo themselves are not in-house making it, would that translate well, or would you see some of the kind of jankiness of a third party kind of jumping in? But no, for the most part, it looks exactly like Breath of the Wild. And I was really impressed with what they did there. And I was actually surprised with how much was in the demo, to be honest. I thought by first chapter they meant like first mission, but actually no, you get like 2 or 3 missions out of that, which is almost an hour worth of material there. So, and the save carries over, so I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think the save carry is a smart thing.
Yeah, it was very well handled, and that I'm very excited to jump into. And now that I guess it's November 1st, that's actually coming out this month too. So we'll see how that fits in with next gen consoles, because it's like the 20th or something like that. So it's like right after.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
And so the last 2 games that I played, because I'm going a little long here, is Hades. I'm still playing like a ton of. I play it pretty much daily. That's like my game right now.
Very good.
I've been using the fists. That's like my main weapon that I've kind of settled on. I love it. That's what I'm going for. I've made tremendous progress in terms of I finally beat Elysium yesterday. So that's the 3rd area. And so I'm not going to do any spoiler things there, but you get to a point where there's kind of like a passing, and you have to go through these weird like single mini rooms, and things get really hectic. And that was the first time I died there. And that was the first time I made it to there. So I've been making a lot of progress in that game. And it makes me feel a lot more positive that I'm like, oh, maybe I'll actually be able to have a successful escape. Maybe one day.
All right.
But man, that Theseus fight with the Minotaur is no joke. I don't know if you've made it that far before.
No, you're giving me flashbacks now, because it's like, jeez.
Yeah, that's brutal. And the thing is, right before that fight, I was able to get my I forget the actual term they use for it, but it's basically when you death defy, when you get killed but you come back with half health.
Yes.
I was able to replenish that right before I went there, and my health was maxed out at about like 225. So I was like, okay, I stand a chance here. This is about as good as it gets. And I had a lot of specifically Zeus upgrades. And I don't know if you've ever used that, but the cool thing is when you use your dash ability, it does like a lightning. And if you upgrade it enough times, it does like a chain lightning move every time you dash.
Yeah, okay, yep.
So between dashing around and being able to use your special move, which it was like level 3 or level 4 upgraded, I was like doing some serious damage. And like I beat them, and that was only my second time actually facing off to them, just because getting to them takes some time. and I was able to beat him. I was like, holy crap, man. Like, that was crazy. So, yeah, I just love Hades. That's such a phenomenal game.
I'm so glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah, it's again, I said it last week, but I reaffirm it this week. Easily one of my favorite games of the year. Easily. It broke into my top 5 already.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad.
And then the last game that I played was Pokemon Crown Tundra.
Ah, okay.
So that came out. Now, I'm a relatively casual Pokemon fan. Like, I play every single one that comes out. But typically when I beat it, that's kind of the end of it for me. I don't try to catch them all. I don't try to do every bit of exploration and every single storyline they have there. I go through the plot and I get out. And it's, for the most part, pretty close to annualized. So I just wait for next year's kind of thing, like I play Call of Duty. So it's always been hard for me to talk about these DLC because these DLCs are so much catered towards the more hardcore people who, really want to get more plot, really want to get access to more Pokemon. Like, I know a lot of people take a lot of issue with Sword and Shield because there's so many Pokemon missing. And this one added a whole bunch. I never really got that caught up in there. I kind of just take whatever they offer me, and I'm like, because again, I'm not a completionist, so if they only have 120 Pokemon in there and they're all new Pokemon, like that doesn't really faze me because I don't really care that much if I have like a Charizard or not. But I understand the frustrations from a lot of other people. So this is speaking from that perspective. Now I have to say, again, I enjoyed the plot that they're adding. This one's a lot more ambiguous than the Isle of Armor DLC, where the Isle of Armor was like, okay, this is what you're set up with. This is the scenario. Go in that direction and do what you got to do. This one is kind of like, there's like a mystery kind of going on.
Okay.
And there's and they kind of just drop you into the island and you're like, all right, look around and figure things out. And so I'm kind of like peeling things back as I walk around and go to these different locations, but it's still taking me a little bit of time to specifically understand what direction they want me to go with, because again, it's such a more ambiguous kind of experience that they're offering here. The good thing is if you buy the season pass, you got Isle of Armor, you also get Crown Tundra, so there's no additional money there, but it is $20 for the season pass, additional to whatever price you spent for the game. So that's worth also noting, is that the price proposition right now, I can't say that it's justified because I haven't gone deep enough to know, but I know they do some cool things like introducing new variants on the original 3 legendaries, which is really, really awesome. I also bumped into like Suicune or whatever its name is relatively early. So they're doing some really interesting stuff, and it's a really awesome area, especially this time of year because it's so snowy and stuff like that. Obviously, the tundra part of the title gives that away. So I'll have more details to share about that in the next upcoming weeks. But for now, I would say I'm generally enjoying it, but Hades is pretty much better than everything.
It's not bad. Yeah, I've had this sort of crave to go back to Pokemon Shield or Sword. I don't even remember which version I had. I think it's Shield. And I didn't realize that the Tundra DLC came out, and I forgot, even though I saw like some trailer, and then you just reminded me again. And I've been wanting to go back. Obviously, again, I'm not a big completionist either, especially the way you really can't do a complete run in these games. So it is interesting, and I'm glad you're playing, because that way at least you can give me more of that impression. Like, because again, I play more of that. I need a story to kind of bring me through this world, and at least with the second DLC, and from what I've seen and from what you've said, it seems like it's in there to an extent, which I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, there's story as in like the plot's expanded in the way that there's new characters and new scenarios, but I wouldn't say it's so plot oriented to the point that it's not like the Horizon DLC, where there's like a whole self-contained deep story that is like enrapturing. The story is pretty much as light as the stories are for like all the Pokemon games.
Okay, yeah.
With exception for like Black and White, which I know were kind of anomalies in terms of how heavy they got. But yeah, no, generally speaking, if you didn't really love the original base game, the DLCs are not going to do anything for you.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
So I guess, you guys are going to hear a lot more of my voice now. We got the first story here. Assassin's Creed live action show has been announced, so let's get into the details of it. So on Tuesday, Netflix announced that they would team up with Ubisoft to develop content based on the Assassin's Creed franchise. In a news release that they said the following: for more than 10 years, millions of fans around the world helped shape the Assassin's Creed brand into an iconic franchise. We're thrilled to create an Assassin's Creed series with Netflix, and we look forward to developing the next saga in the Assassin's Creed universe. We're excited to partner with Ubisoft and bring to life the rich, multi-layered storytelling that Assassin's Creed is beloved for, said Peter Friedlander, the VP of Original Series at Netflix. From its breathtaking historical worlds and massive global appeal as one of the best-selling video game franchises of all time, we are committed to carefully crafting epic and thrilling entertainment based on this distinct IP and provide a deeper dive for fans and our members around the world to enjoy. So, Steve, you are definitely the bigger Assassin's Creed fan of the two of us. I'm definitely somebody who jumped in with Odyssey. So what was your thoughts immediately upon hearing this news?
So there was a slight confusion in my category because Netflix, I want to say a year and a half ago, announced doing an animated series already.
Yes.
With the guys who did the Castlevania that are also doing Devil May Cry and stuff. I'm like, okay, this is something we already knew. Then they're like, well, no, this is going to be a live-action show, and they're pretty much going to be, from my understanding, trying to make a little Assassin's Creed universe. So I guess the anime show may tie into the live-action stuff like that. So I wanted to be excited. Instinctively, I was excited when you see the symbol and you see the little teaser trailer they gave us. It's exciting. I just don't know what they're going to really go with, because from the way they're talking about it, they're obviously going to be doing a dual story, where you're going to kind of have probably the current timeline with someone jumping into the Animus. And don't get me wrong, I know that's still in the newer Assassin's Creed games. That's obviously something that they highly abandoned after Assassin's Creed 3, though. With, yes. I mean, I know you're playing as like an archaeologist now in the newer ones or something like that. But again, that's super, super... Like, they've really removed it to the point where it's almost not even in there. So I'm curious to see what vibe they kind of go with. I'm hoping... the games are always mature, so I'm hoping they kind of go like an unrated or at least a very edgy way, because a lot of these eras they like to take on in Assassin's Creed are pretty brutal. Like, Valhalla's coming. That's not going to be a nice little game. Like, that's a brutal time for the battles and the wars and everything that was going on. I'm worried that it's going to be a little repetitive, because Assassin's Creed has pretty much hit all like the iconic like time eras for mostly. You have a little bit of, if you go back to Assassin's Creed 2 compared to all these other Assassin's Creed games, you've hit a lot of that distinctive like time era people like. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it. I do get kind of like bitter because I did not enjoy the Assassin's Creed live movie that they did too much.
Few people did.
Yeah. It was it's not terrible, but it's just not Assassin's Creed. Again, it's something. It felt like a very old school taking a game IP and making it a movie for some reason.
Street Fighter style.
Yeah, I would say Street Fighter, Prince of Persia style, which also was Ubisoft. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. I think Assassin's Creed gives them enough freeway to and willingness to do it. Unlike we've talked about constantly the Uncharted games, which have to hit a certain beat. The characters have to be a certain way. Assassin's Creed is very open-ended, where you can make your own new character. They don't specifically say they're going to go the original trilogy route with like Desmond in the current timeline. I don't think they should. Completely open it up and stuff like that. Again, a lot of little rumors came out that someone was already going to be casted as Ezio. I just don't think they're going to do that route, and I don't think they should. So as a more, not casual fan, but as a newer fan of Assassin's Creed, where are you kind of hoping this takes direction to?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I almost don't know what to take of this, because Assassin's Creed is too broad, and I know that sounds nuts, but that means so many different things to so many different people over like a very long period of time at this point, that again I don't know what this means. Because specifically, I don't know if this, how does this work as a show? To be honest, the only portion of the Assassin's Creed storyline that I think they could probably even stand a chance of adapting wouldn't be really an Assassin's Creed story. Like, they could adapt, Origins or Odyssey or something in that world, but essentially they'd just be an Egyptian or a Greek show. Like, there wouldn't be, if you try to have those kind of overarching narratives of what's going on in the background nowadays with the Templars, it would immediately unwind and become unfollowable, because playing the game as someone who put 75 hours into it, I barely was able to follow in terms of what was happening in the background, because it's so ambiguous, and you could tell they're kind of playing that weird game of like not wanting to completely abandon that kind of future storyline part of it, because again, they've invested so much onto it, and they don't want to completely piss off the old fans, which they've done a pretty good job so far of, but they want to keep something out there for them. So that fight and that kind of background Templar storyline still exists. But to be honest, like, you could tell they're also playing the game where like it's not really a relevant thing. So I don't know, by Assassin's Creed they can go old school with it and they can completely adapt the old, Renaissance Italy type era, but I don't know if that translates well to a show. I don't know if people like it. I don't know if that whole thing has aged well, or is it going to come off as edgy? I don't know. And I do kind of worry about them kind of biting off more than they can chew with this kind of multiverse thing, because if they're going to try to do a thing where it's like, we're going to do a season per era, you're going to run into some weird stuff where, I mean, Westworld was barely able to hold that together, so I don't know if they'll be able to.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not a proven identity where it's like Westworld's a great example. I know we brought it up, I think, super early on the podcast, early episodes we talked about Assassin's Creed doing like a Westworld type deal. And again, Westworld did it for the first season. I didn't keep watching Westworld. I don't know how the rest of the seasons worked out with it and stuff like that, with the other realms and stuff. It's just, yeah, you got to remember, not everyone's going to be able to sit there, read synopsis and read Easter eggs and like, if you think of like, I'm trying to think of like my parents just clicking a show and watching it. They're not going to understand why the first 10 minutes of episode 1 was in the future, and then we got 7 episodes, let's say, of, Italy, and then you assume the last 2 episodes are going to try to ramp up some future thing that's going to try to connect to one small detail that happened in the back. Then, you're forgetting characters, you're not connecting with these characters, and it's going to be, different, because if you think of some of the best shows, those characters is what helps drive it. So if you're going, like we said, different era every season, you're going to recast it every season, because you can't use the same people, because it's not going to make any sense. So it's unless they find a workaround, that just won't be sustainable for that long. I know Netflix has a cast of characters, but what are you going to do? You can't like get a character and just keep recasting. It's just not going to make sense. And I think this is it's an interesting IP for them to choose, but I think they also chose one of the more difficult ones to start this sort of project. And I also think you get too many hands in the pot, because you got the guys doing the animated stuff. They're going to go with one vibe, then you're going to get a live action show. Is it going to look kind of weird? Remember, Ubisoft did, especially in the Assassin's Creed 2 era, they did a few live action sequences. So there was a whole live action miniseries, and then they eventually put all the scenes together as a movie for Ezio's father, who played the thing. And it was fine, but it was a smaller, almost YouTube based thing where it looked fine. Some of this stuff just doesn't translate well into a live action, and it's just I don't know who's going to be able to work it out the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I wish them the best, and to be honest, The Witcher specifically changed my tune a lot about what Netflix can do with video game IPs. And again, I understand Witcher is actually technically adapting a book, not a strict video game, but it's pretty close, and it takes a lot of cues from there, and there's obviously some degree of inspiration there. So that gave me hope that these things can be done with enough care. I just don't want them to bite off more than they chew. So if they're going to adapt Assassin's Creed for at least Season 1, I think they should stick to one era, one storyline. And to be honest, if they're going to try to do multiple seasons, multiple eras, the best way they could probably link it together, just brainstorming, would be a different direction than the games, and that's going to piss a lot of people off, but it might make a better show, is if there's kind of, like, for example, in Odyssey, there's that cult. And there's like certain common enemies that you face from Assassin's Creed game to Assassin's Creed game with similar kind of like imagery that they use and stuff like that. And maybe that could be the kind of connecting fabric, that it's basically like there's this war between side A and side B, and no matter what era you go, there's kind of a persisting war that's going on, all kind of coming together around a single assassin. And that can be the kind of branching narrative that carries from each season. And they can maybe take a almost like American Horror Story approach, where each season's disconnected, but with the same reoccurring themes, so people are able to follow. Maybe. Just a brainstorming.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a possibility, and might be the better way to do it, to not be safer, but ease people into that format.
Yeah, just leave this future stuff alone, maybe. Because, again, what you're able to do in a video game does not necessarily make sense in the context of a show. So I feel like if they can just establish that this is what's going on, there's side A fighting side B, start the Italy storyline and just go from there, I think people can kind of connect the dots that way a lot easier than if they keep pivoting back and forth. And then if they, I mean, God forbid, try to do it, it's like, okay, so that big war that was going on, yeah, now it's just a company and people go back for fun. Forget about it. There's not a chance that anybody understands that.
It doesn't work. All right, so let's get into the second story. We'll have some more, updates on Assassin's Creed when we get some information. I think it's going to be a while, especially amongst the way filming is nowadays. During the pandemic.
Yeah, COVID delays. It's
going to be a while. So, and waiting for things for a while, I guess. Nice segue here. So we have some unfortunate news to deliver. So some unfortunate delays have been announced. First is, even though it went gold, Cyberpunk 2077, Jabril, has been delayed by 21.
Who is responsible?
By 21 days. So this is the game that was originally set to release in April. Then it was delayed to September 17th. Then it was delayed to November 19th. Then it went gold, which means usually the discs are formatted, starting to hit print. And obviously the company usually keeps working on for a day one patch and stuff like that. But now it has been delayed by 21 days to December 10th. So this is, like we said, the big hit here before we get to the second delay. They were making a big stink, I want to say, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, when the game went gold, that, this meant no more delays, not too much, the whole crunch rumors and stuff was kind of put to the side. The game was done, a lot of the bulk work was done, and they were able to get it going. This is weird that literally, 2 weeks later, boom, we're hit with another delay, a 3-week delay. So it's a little bit interesting, so the delay seems to be an optimization issue across every version of the game for a simultaneous release, and some more stuff has come out about this, pretty much saying that the game is working fantastic on PC and next-gen hardware. It's some of the current hardware, which I'm assuming is probably the base PS4 and the base Xbox One, is what's causing a lot of the hold-up. So before we get into the second delay, we already know you're bummed out. We can kind of tell everyone's bummed out. How was this reaction to the Cyberpunk delay?
Yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like I'm never mad at like the developers. So like CD Projekt Red has to do what's best for their game, and delays are only going to make the game better. I understand that, but yeah, it is very upsetting and saddening because again, this was my most anticipated game of the year easily. I love their work. I love The Witcher, and I was always saying that I love Witcher, but fantasy has never been my jam. It's always been kind of sci-fi and futuristic stuff. And so Cyberpunk was 1,000% the game I needed. Plus, they're like, it's deep, it's a dense city, there's all these branching narratives you can customize and do all this kind of crazy stuff. Like, it's perfect. It was just everything they were saying was right up my jam. But again, yeah, these delay thing is getting crazy. And you want to hear the craziest thing, and the perfect way to kind of summarize this, to put this into context for you, is there is a Cyberpunk 2077 Xbox One X that has been out. The One X has since been discontinued. So there's a Cyberpunk 2077 version of a console that has since been discontinued based around a game that's still not out. Like, that's how much the delay has been. They waited so long that they released a version of a console that has since been discontinued. Like, how insane is that?
That's right. It is a little crazy when you start to think of it that way.
And I'm just like, again, COVID, listen, it threw a lot of things out of whack, and I'm sympathetic to that. And I'm like, but this was supposed to be an April game. Like an April game. And then delayed to September. And again, April was during the COVID era, September was during the COVID era, November was during the COVID era. So eventually you have to ask, like, how long before you guys are just saying dates before you even know if that's possible? You know what I mean? And that's what I always take issues with, is if you don't know for sure, just don't say it. Because again, you're just setting yourself up for a lot of ridicule and stuff like that. And I understand they said, like, a lot of people don't expect them to be able to do too much in 21 days, but you'd be surprised what we're able to do and stuff like that. And it's like, but this isn't 21 days. This is, first off, this was announced, years and years and years ago, initially.
Yep.
I don't know specifically when, but we're talking about a significant amount of time, at least 7-8 years or something like that.
Yeah, it was announced, I want to say, after Witcher 2.
Yeah, so it was an insane amount of time ago that it was announced. And then this game was, for the most part, content complete fairly early in 2020. So I mean, eventually it's got to get to a point where it's like, what is going on with you guys? And it's like, I understand making current gen versions run, as well as possible to match, but like, it's like, how long are people for next gen consoles gonna have to have their experience dampened because of console hardware from 2013? Like, eventually you got to either move on or delay it and let the current gen people wait a little bit and let the next gen people be able to experience what they got to experience, because again, we're having new hardware and we're kind of starving for new experience to be able to play on the Xbox Series X and the PS5, and having to wait, for, again, really, really old hardware to be able to run these games is really unfortunate. But again, I understand the install base of the PS4 and the Xbox One ecosystem is substantially larger, and it's going to be years before the PS5 and Series X eclipse that. So I understand, but it's really, really unfortunate and disheartening. But again, I just hope they meet the December one. But at this point, it's entered, for me, Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts levels where it's like, I'll play it when I get it. Like, I don't trust anything you guys say. Not that, again, the development cycles are comparable, because it's not. Because Square has a unique case in terms of their delays. But yeah, it's gotten to the point where it's like, I'll believe it when I see it, because at this point, I don't really know what's going on with you guys. But again, people who are sending hate to teams, knock it off. Y'all are unhinged. You got to get it together. Yeah, that's I just wanted to add that. Don't do that. You guys are crazy.
Yeah, that's a little too much. And
it's a video game.
What also makes me worried is, there was an interview that happened a little bit after this where they're like, well, are you guys confident you're going to hit your December 10th date? And they're like, well, we're pretty confident. We think we can hit that date. And I'm like, see, I think, and I've been saying this since the second delay when they moved it to September, I said they need to just move this into 2021. That way you have all that pressure off you. You could always go reverse. Remember, we've seen games, rarely, but we have seen games, instead of delay, move up forward. So it's like, that would be way better news. People would be celebrating, because at this point it's almost like a meme. You get that big yellow card on Twitter, you see it on your Twitter feed, and it's a Cyberpunk newsletter, and unfortunately, it is a delay. So even the fact that they're not confident they're going to hit the December 10th date, even though they said their project has gone gold and stuff like that, it's very worrisome. I'm starting to get to the point where I'm worried that, like we said, the discs are being printed. They may be already in some warehouses somewhere. This game's gonna start leaking at this point, and I
oh, no doubt.
And I'm sad over that. That the fact is the game's gonna leak to the extent that people are gonna get their hands on it, and the developers aren't gonna have much. I mean, they can copyright strike and do all that stuff, but the fact is, once it's on the internet, it's on the internet, and that's terrible. Again, I don't know. They're kind of in a lose-lose situation here now, where people think it's not coming out this year at all. I don't think it's coming out this year. December 10th is so late in the year.
It's so close, yeah.
At this point, it is a 2021 game, because by the time people even play it, by the time people can get it, you're deep into 2021. So you're missing the whole Game of the Year awards context. Who knows what the games that Cyberpunks are going to go... Cyberpunk's going to go up against probably some pretty amazing games next year that it's just going to unfortunately get lost. Hopefully, not, too lost, but... what if there's another game that's kind of in the same era, kind of style next year that we don't even know of? And it sucks that unfortunately that this happened to them. But at the same time, we understand we can't just demand things. We just kind of hope the best is going on there. We understand that this generation's also such a weird thing, because they're trying to optimize this game for PS4, PS4 Pro, Xbox One, Xbox One S, Xbox One X, the Series S, Series X, PC, and Stadia. I don't know who's doing that, but that's Stadia. 9. That's 9 versions of a game, essentially. And the ease of what used to be making things for console, 2 SKUs, to changed. Now you're 2 SKUs on 3 SKUs on PlayStation, and 5 SKUs you have to worry about on Xbox.
Yeah.
So it's an insane amount, and who knows? We've been saying early on that this game needs to be a complete next gen. But like we said, that's easy for us to say because we're obviously jumping into next gen. There's people who won't jump into that for years or if ever. So they obviously want to play on the hardware they have now. So, coming up next to another delay, but I guess it's not the worst one. So Ubisoft has confirmed that Far Cry 6, which was originally announced to be released on February 18th, 2021, has now been delayed into the next fiscal year, which means it will come out at some point after March 2021, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And they also quickly mentioned that Rainbow Six Quarantine is also being pushed too. This was, I guess, less of a hit because of the fact that the game's also, you gotta remember, Cyberpunk was scheduled to be released in 2 weeks. Farcry was obviously not coming out until February, so that is not that horrible of a delay. I guess it really kind of depends when this game's pushed to. If they come out and like, Far Cry 6 is now a fall game, that'll be a little bit too much because I think fall 2021 is going to be a heavy full year. So how did you react to this delay? I wasn't too broken up about it. Spreading these games out a little bit more works for me. That's always been my thing, even for the Cyberpunk. As much as I want to play Cyberpunk on my new hardware close to launch, spreading these things out kind of works out for me a little bit and hopefully helps the developers.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it hurt because, again, coming off of Cyberpunk, these were two of the games I was the most excited for. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like, man, the double whammy, that sucks. But again, yeah, it's entirely dependent on, again, a fiscal year. It's 12 months, so it's from April to April. So sometime in there, yeah, if this comes out on the late 2021, yeah, I'm going to be a lot more, saddened than if this is an April release. If it's an April release, I mean, it's not ideal, but I'll take what I get. Again, once a game is out, it's out. So do what you got to do beforehand to make that experience as nice as possible. So it couldn't hurt. Make it more polished and make a better experience. Because again, once it's out, I wanna see something that really pushes the hardware and is an amazing next gen experience. And if by a couple more months makes that more of a reality and makes that a higher chance, then I'm willing to wait.
Yeah, I'm in the same aspect. Obviously, Far Cry I think is gonna be amazing. I'm not too broken up by having to wait just a little bit more. Far Cry, there's no real skeptical like guessing game because Far Cry literally releases when they want to, so we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, delays. And COVID's throwing everything off, and I'm sure there's going to be more to come, no doubt.
Yeah.
In 2032, when Halo Infinite finally comes out. All right, so we got a new Nintendo partner showcase, actually, and I'm going to run through all the different announcements that I had there because there's some interesting things to talk about and a lot of stuff that we've already talked about.
Yep.
So a demo for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity was released. We talked about that. We both, liked it, and we're generally positive on it.
Yep.
Control Ultimate Edition Cloud version, I talked about that. Positive experience as well. Hitman 3 is also getting a cloud version. Bravely Default 2 is now releasing in 2021. No More Heroes 1 and 2 are coming to Switch. So for all you guys who are excited to play 3, that can, give you something to play in the meantime. We got Part-Time UFO, Story of Seasons, Pioneers of Olive Town. I do want to highlight this one. For everybody who's kind of interested in Story of Seasons, this is Harvest Moon right here. This is Harvest Moon. Don't let the IP name thing confuse you. The name switched. This is the team you want to pay attention to. The Story Seasons games are phenomenal. So for you guys who remembered playing it back in the day, on Game Boy or N64 or wherever, this is the franchise you want to check out, not the actual ones that are called Harvest Moon, because those are, iPhone game port janky messes. So Surviving the Aftermath. We got to look at Immortals Phoenix Rising on Switch was out, which, again, the resolution's fairly low and stuff like that, but I am kind of excited at the prospect that this is coming to Switch and a lot of people will be able to play it there, and hopefully it plays well. I will absolutely not be touching this version of the game. I'm going to be playing this on PS5, but I'm glad that it's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We got Bakugan Champions of Vestroia or whatever. I had zero clues Bakugan still was a thing. I thought that was like 07.
Yeah, apparently it's had a relaunch from my understanding.
God bless them.
I don't know.
Best of luck. I remember thinking the toys were really awesome, but I was too broke to have one. And I guess not much has changed. Tropico 6, and then we have Griftland. So we got a lot of different indie games, things of varying qualities and stuff like that. But yeah, anything from this stand out to you, Steve?
So obviously, the Age of Calamity demo was super exciting. I was excited tech-wise for Hitman 3 and Control Ultimate Edition. And obviously we're getting different, results and stuff like that for people. Hitman was a strange one because the first 2 Hitman aren't on there as of now, so it's kind of...
they're not technically demanding. I don't know why there's a cloud version, but...
Yeah, I'm a little confused on that. Again, Bravely Default 2, I should maybe have more... I've never played Bravely Default, the first one. I think you did. You talked.
I think
I
did.
This was years ago now. At this point, you talked it up a lot, and I do remember trying it a little bit.
Yeah, that game's awesome.
Some gameplay. It's obviously original Final Fantasy style. Obviously, the new Final Fantasies are super cinematic. This one's like hardcore, and I can get that from the demo. I don't know how I feel about the super chibi style of it, and some of the voice acting is a little cringy. If you try the demo out, you'll see what you'll probably text me because you'll see what I'm kind of talking about. It's a little bit
I'm
weird.
gonna try that on right after this.
Yeah, it's a little weird. No More Heroes, I already said I did purchase the first one. Super cool, runs nice. It is obviously the Wii ports because they did remake the first No More Heroes for PlayStation 3. It's not that version, obviously. You're playing the old version, but it's cool to see these games in their entirety. A lot of the adult humor is still there, and the sexual jokes and the blood and all that stuff is still there. So from my knowledge, they haven't like super censored the game in any aspect. Part-type UFO was cute. It's not for me.
Yeah.
Story of Seasons, every time I see it, I'm glad it's there because Harvest Moon, like you said, went into such a dark loop that it's glad to see that these games are there. And the other games, again, Bakugan is not a thing. It's just not a thing for me. Yeah, I remember what it was. Immortals was interesting because I knew it was coming to Switch. I just when they rebranded Immortals and they had all these YouTubers play it, they were all playing PC versions. So I was like, I wonder how it runs on Switch. I'm like, okay, it's there. Again, I will probably play this on Series X or PS5. But again, for people who only have that and are into this kind of game, it's there. Obviously, the edges were a little bit more rough and stuff like that. But it's exciting. It was such a weird showcase that Nintendo keeps doing these random. I just wake up and while I'm trying to do something in the morning, here's a 20-minute video with a bunch of announcements, and but there's some good stuff. Again, the No More Heroes 1 and 2 port coming. Obviously, they just delayed No More Heroes 3 a while back, so at least you give us something like this. That gives you 3 No More Hero games to play on Switch before the third one comes out, because there's the spin-off that's on there.
Oh yeah, Travis Strikes Back.
Travis Strikes Back, which is more of a minigame based one. And so, you can kind of to be able to play the whole series on one system is a smart move. I'm curious if these two are coming over to other systems, because Travis Strikes Again released on PlayStation, if I'm not wrong. So it's weird, but then No More Heroes 3 is announced as a Switch exclusive right now. Some weird stuff, but again, that's what these partner showcases are just always like a combined weird nonsense to an extent, but it's exciting. Some good stuff in there, some exciting stuff, because Switch was looking a little bare for a while.
Yeah, and I do have to commend Nintendo. I think they're 3 years into this generation at this point. Their insistence on supporting like indie developers and stuff like that, I think, is a really, really awesome thing. And again, their first party offerings can sometimes dry out because, again, they fire from all cylinders for a couple months, like in 2017, and things will loosen up a little bit more. But they had some big games this year too. Don't get it twisted. But you can never say that, hey, if you go on that eStore, there's always something new to play. And I got to give them credit, is that those Thursday drops are no freaking joke on Switch. Yeah. There's a constant stream of it, of varying quality. Some things are not that great. Some things are pretty good. But there's kind of always something to play on there. And they're always, with exception for some of the bigger games that always have that ridiculous Switch tax, there's always relatively well-priced indie games available on there. So I always find myself playing something small. And again, as much as the great things that are coming out on that thing, go buy Hades. Steve was right. Come on, guys.
Yeah, and if I'm not wrong, I don't know if it was just for Halloween, because I constantly check the deal section in Switch, because those go live crazy. Hades is on sale again for $19.99. So even if one person out there hears me, buy Hades.
Yeah.
Let's not let's get it twisted. Go buy Hades.
Trust me, if you expect to do more than one run a week, it's worth every dime, for sure.
It's a fantastic game. Alright, so we're going to the next, which is not really a story, I guess it's just a small segment. Jabril, we're 11 days away from the launch of PlayStation 5.
Literally got chills when you said that. I just looked at the day, I was like, oh my god, it's so close.
It's exciting. Literally next week, not this week, next week. It's here, and I'm starting to get really hyped, starting to watch unboxings and stuff like that. A little jealous, because I do see people where I'm like, I wish I had the ability to unbox it. There's some people who I think don't deserve it. I guess that's kind of spiteful of me, but just watching them unbox it, like I saw someone pull it out and kind of drop it on the table, and I was like,
yikes, really?
I was like, oh no, it hurt me. But accessories have been released out there, so I was able to get my hands on my DualSense. I got it early on in the week. My friend brought it over. He ordered through PlayStation, the Direct website and stuff, so he got it early, which makes me a little jealous, because he also pre-ordered his PlayStation that way, and I'm starting to get a sense he may get the system like 2-3 days early, and I would be super envious. But at my local GameStop where I had my DualSense pre-ordered and the HD camera. Just there's not much. I can't really give an impressions on the HD camera, so you can't see me. But on the video, guys, I do have my DualSense here, a real live DualSense. I unboxed it. Super excited to get my hands on it. So I guess this is kind of just a quick, my thoughts on it. First of all, the control's super comfortable weight-wise. Again, you are expecting yours
today
at the time of recording any minute, right?
Yeah.
So any
it
minute
should be coming soon. Yeah.
So one thing, my initial reaction out of the box, it is not as white as you think, and it's interesting, and I can't really explain it until you see it. When you see it, you're gonna immediately be like, "Huh, he was right." It's like a soft white. I don't know colors. I'm not a painter. I don't know the difference between eggshell white, snow white, and snowfall white. I'm not one of those people. But it's like a very soft off white, where it's not it's not really yellow, but it's nice. Black is crisp. The light's there. The control obviously has more of a weight to it. A little bit bigger, fits naturally more in your hand. Obviously, people who suffer with like hand cramps and stuff like that with the original DualShocks and all the way to the DualShock 4, this will feel a little bit better. It's not too super big. It's not super like 360 style. But it is comfortable. It's there. The sticks are obviously where we know DualSense. We know where PlayStation sticks are, so it's there.
Yep.
So it's really nice. USB-C 3 on top, which is becoming kind of the standard. It's not the mini USB anymore, and I have tons of these. So the control doesn't bring a charging cable, but the system does. So I was a little weirded on that.
Did you have anything in your house to be able to get some charge into it, or?
Yeah, it's the Switch charger.
Oh, okay, perfect.
So it worked out. And
how dare you? That's Nintendo. How dare you?
So also, it was very nice that the control had power right out the gate. So it's nice. The touchpad is solid. The only it's kind of the same touchpad. It's a little bit more clicky. Triggers were one where I was excited. Obviously, I cannot use the the feedback as much as we wanted to because I don't have one. I was able to try this on my PC. It worked perfectly fine. And it's comfortable. It is comfortable. Again, the triggers feel like normal triggers right now because we can't get the feedback. You can tell a difference when you push them that, like, there's more of a arch to it. Like, the angle of it is going to be different. Like, you can definitely tell, like, they always talk about, like, when you're, like, pulling back a bowstring and stuff like that, you'll be able to feel it. And I can tell that already just by touching the triggers on how that's going to work a little bit. I'm surprised on the size of them are bigger, which is nice. And R1 and L1, I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but they're a little bit more satisfying clicky. They're not squishy. So, and I thought that was just on the other DualShock. I was like, maybe it's just because it was so new on DualSense, sorry, that I got to try earlier this week. When I got mine, opened the box, it's the same. So it is very, like, you're pushing the button, which obviously usually do. So it's super exciting. I'm happy to have it. You have the little mic here. There is a mute and unmute button right on the control, which I always thought that was just a little light. So I'm super excited to have it. I'm really impressed with it. It's obviously just such a natural evolution on the DualShock, and obviously now that's why they renamed it DualSense. I still kind of wish they just named it DualShock 5. But with all the hardware that's in there that I haven't been able to test out, there are some people out there who have been able to kind of get into it. It's a super satisfying control, and I'm really happy. This might become one of my new favorite controls ever. Usually the next PlayStation control becomes my favorite control. Especially, I like the directional pad for PlayStation because I play a lot of fighters and I need those inputs the correct way. Yep. So, that's still there. The face buttons are still there. You have your create button, your share button, your options button is all kind of standard. But overall, it's a very nice, clean looking control. I was able to show a few people who wanted to see it were able to get a pre-order. It's there. I don't see it being much of a finger magnet. I'm not sure why people keep talking about that, where it's going to be a lot of fingerprint issues. I've been like kind of rubbing my thumb against it slightly, and I don't really see any of that problem. I don't know why everyone keeps talking about it. But that is there, guys. DualSense 5, super excited. I'm really excited for you to get yours so you can really get a hand on it. The grips on the actual analog sticks are also changed. They're a little bit indented at the same time curved, so it's like a slight bump, which is all just better. Like, I don't see anything that changed for the worse on this control yet compared to the DualShock 4. And I've been kind of bouncing back all week in between the two, obviously, so super excited to have it. And just makes me happy holding it, I don't know what it is. Unboxing, it's really nice, so
Yeah, so I haven't gotten mine yet, but once I do, we're gonna take a couple of days to play around with it, get more familiar with it, and hopefully sometime during the week you guys can expect an episode, or not an episode, but a dedicated video of kind of our first hands-on impressions, and then obviously once the consoles are out and we actually play around them and get to play Astros, we can have more to say about it at that point. But I did have like two kind of questions for you, since you actually have your hands on. So first, I'm aware that it has a more kind of gritty feel to it because it has all those kind of like imprinted, the different buttons and symbols on there.
Yeah.
How does that feel? Does it feel way different?
It doesn't feel way different. So we've seen pretty high-res photos of the back. And
yes,
for anyone who does, I can't show on this camera because you need a super crazy camera.
Yeah, you got a 4K joint.
Let me tell you, you can have this control almost against your face and you won't see those symbols on there. So they're not as big as you're thinking.
It looks very pronounced.
It looks very pronounced. It does still feel matte. Like it's not like it's hard to describe. It's almost
like the Xbox matte.
It's almost flush. It's almost like the Xbox matte. So it's not that hard. Like again, sound it might be my better option right now. Like this is the front plate. You can't really hear anything. The back you'll hear it, but it's not like gritty. It's not like it's not like it's gonna wear out. And I'm sure they will at some point wear out, but it's so tiny. Like, it's almost microscopic, those symbols on the back. So you do feel like a slight grip back there because of that. Okay. But it's not, like, distracting. It's not like it's going to wear out. It's not like, some of the X's are going to fall out to my extent. Because if you don't know they're there, obviously we know because we watch everything PlayStation post, you wouldn't know that they're there. You think this is how the back was finished.
Gotcha, because I actually like kind of that kind of grittiness of specifically the Xbox type because it's really great for grip, and the more kind of shiny plastic of the DualShock 4 collects oils a lot more.
Yeah. But
I did have a little bit of concerns because of those pictures. They looked so pronounced that I'm like, that's going to collect a lot of dirt if they're sticking out too far. If there's like deep grooves in there, I was afraid about dirt collection and yellowing and stuff like that. Yeah, but that's good to hear that it's not as pronounced as you think.
And stuff. No, yeah, you won't get that in between these little symbols. Again, yeah, I thought they were very more pronounced and like they're almost flushed to the control.
Got you. And then I also wondered, so obviously it's very early, you haven't gotten the chance to check out like the adapted triggers and all those things, but just early impressions, how do you think it compares to the previous 4 controllers? So obviously we have the original DualShock, the first time with the sticks. We have the second one that was kind of evolution from that. The third one was very similar to the second one, but the DualShock 4 was a pretty far departure at that point, but that had a lot of problems with the sticks. So just kind of early impressions like that. Do you think this is one of the better ones, or do you think one of the other ones edge it out so far?
Yes, it's going to be one of the better controls. I think this will obviously be my favorite PlayStation control from now on. I think going back won't really be a thing I would do, which sucks because I have so many DualShock 4s that will work on PS5 if I was playing a PS4 game, but it just doesn't make sense to when I have this control. That's just a better control. I think when you really get like the weight, again, like I always talk about the weight, the control's not like heavy. Don't you're not gonna be like, oh, my arms are tired from holding it. But for almost a second, and I'll be honest, when I opened it and put it there and like grabbed it, put it in my hands, for a second my thumb went to where the analog stick is on a Xbox control. Because for a split second, because every other controller usually has it there. I think the Pro Controller has it there. So when you got comfortable for a quick second, my thumb went there, and I was like, whoa, just for a second, and it just feels so much more comfortable than these. And so to me, there is no going back. I don't see why I would ever have to use. Obviously, if I'm playing some multiplayer game that I need those controls, they're there, and they'll be nice to always collect them. But this is definitely, to me, the best. Like they've gotten better with time, except for the original, the launch PlayStation 3 empty shell game, things. Obviously, they redid it later, but besides those, they've gotten better with time, and they obviously take the criticism. You can see the inspiration from even the Pro Control with the longer, the handles. I guess the longer handles come down, like they sit all the way into my palm, which is comfortable. I don't have the biggest hands. I kind of have like long hands, so it feels comfortable. Like I can reach around everything on here.
Man, I can't wait to get my hands on that.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to get it, because then hopefully some of this stuff translate. When people start getting their hands on it, they're going to be like, oh, I can kind of see what he was trying to get at.
Yeah, I was kind of bugging out though. I'm like, man, this is going to be the first generation where I just have accessories for a console I don't have yet. So it's just going to be sitting there. I'm going to be like, oh, it's like a tease.
Yeah, so at least in my experience, when the launch of the PS4, and I think I may have even said this on here before, I had a DualShock 4 and like 3 games a week before launch.
Oh, games too? Wow.
Yeah, 2 weeks before launch. I mean, this is a week and a half before launch. Is a little much because, again, I have the HD camera as well. There's not much to talk about it. I haven't unboxed it completely because I just don't know what to do with it. And it's, it's nice. I like the packaging and stuff that matches the rest of the packaging. And it's there's something with the controller every time I grab it, and like if it comes with a slight charge. The PlayStation button is completely black, but when you do push it, like the lights still turn on.
Have you tried it on a PS4?
I haven't, because I think you have to sync it up as a Bluetooth device, and I just don't. I don't really have haven't done it. I will probably test it out today because I want to see how easy it is. Because I would love to just start getting used to it, playing Crash Bandicoot on this and stuff like that. Star Wars Squadrons.
Because if it works, I'm just gonna start using the DualSense instead, and then when the PS5 comes out, so I'm ready to go.
So I have to check, because again, I don't know if you can. I'm pretty sure you can sync this up the same way. I want to say I saw people do that online, so I may have to do a quick check, and I will let you know. And when we do once you get your control during this week, probably mid of this week, we'll do a video. I'll let you know specifically how it works. So, I don't want there to be connection issues and stuff like that.
Yep, gotcha. All right, that makes sense.
But exciting times, man, because every day we're getting a step closer, and the fact that this is here now, like I legit have packaging that says PlayStation 5, I'm getting hyped. And now I'm officially hyped. I was very aware, staying away from unboxings and stuff, but now I'm at the point where it's like, I want my hardware. I need this box now.
Yep, and just another reminder that, again, sometime this week, expect a video where we're going to go into more depth, and maybe we'll have a little bit of like an unboxing and first look for you guys too as well. So expect next-gen content coming out soon. So I guess we can move on to the loose topic to kind of cap off the show here. And this is going to be an interesting one. So it's games we would want to see a movie or a series adaptation of. Now, this is interesting because throughout the podcast, I'll speak mostly for myself. I was very negative on this idea in general, because generally I like to say that allow properties to be adapted in the way that they were meant to be adapted as. So let anime be anime, let games be games. But there are certain circumstances where, depending on the nature of the game or the story or something like that, where a movie or a series adaptation can actually be beneficial to them. So, Steve, let's start with you. Did you have anything in mind?
So I stuck with 2 because I was trying to think of different things. So I know we had a similar discussion a while back when we first started this, but I wanted to think of like something a little bit more out there. And I'm trying to think of the experiences I played this week. So. This year. And one thing I did was play with Saints Row. We played Saints Row 3 Remastered, which was a complete game. Loved it. And I started thinking, how could we experience this more? Now, Saints Row is very out there. It's very extreme and stuff like that. So I was like, how would this translate? I was like, there's no way they can do a movie, because it would just be, I don't want scary movie vibes. I don't want epic movie vibes. I don't want that stuff, So I started thinking, how would I want this game adapted in a sense? And I started, and when you sent me this topic, I started kind of just doing my normal Saturday routine, and I'm watching Archer, and I'm watching it, and I don't know if you're familiar with the show. I mean, I know you know the show, but it sometimes stays on a realistic vibe, and then it gets all loose, like just completely off the rails. And I said, you know what? Saints Row in a kind of style like this would make sense to me, where you need, you can have an overall story and stuff like that, but Saints Row is such a hard one to, and I specifically go from like Saints Row 3 and I guess a little bit of 4. 1 and 2 are way more GTA style in a sense, and way more realistic. So I'm thinking more of this ridiculous style with ridiculous jokes. We remember Zemo and stuff like that. You don't want to see that done. You don't want that done realistically. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But I can imagine at any point, and I was watching Archer, and I can imagine at any point like Zemo coming. I kept using him just because how ridiculous of a character he is. He speaks in auto.
So funny.
He speaks in autotune. I'm like, oh my god. I was like, a Saints Row comedy style show even in this animated style that's kind of a hard cell shaded style that is Archer. I was like, man, I'd watch that. I think I would literally watch it and not be worried about they're going to ruin it. And Saints Row also gives them so much freedom, where I'm sure that obviously they would bring some characters. Gat, Shondi would obviously be some staples, but you could create brand new characters for us to laugh at, hate. The show gets a little, the game gets ridiculous with some characters' deaths, but you could also play with it so openly without having like hard fan base. When people are thinking of the Last of Us show that's coming, they're thinking, how are you going to recreate Joel and Ellie? I don't care how you recreate any of these characters in Saints Row. I think as long as it's funny and has this sort of campiness to an extent, I think it would be fantastic.
Yeah, Gat literally goes to hell. It'd be like a perfect like Adult Swim-ish type show.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And in a world where we got like Venture Brothers canceled and all these other shows canceled, I'm like, man, I was like, how can I fund this show? Who do I gotta talk to? I'm a small dude from way over here, the East Coast, and I'm like, I kind of want to watch Saints Row. I
gotta call somebody up.
Yeah, right. We have too many ideas. So what's one of yours?
Yeah, so the way I kind of approached it was choosing a great game to adapt as a movie. I feel like would do it a little bit of a disservice because again, I feel like, for example, like Uncharted is best as a video game. A lot of video games are best as video games. But I was like, well, what is something that maybe would be better as a movie? And then I was like, The Order 1886.
Kind of was a movie already.
Yes. Yes, it was. But I was like envisioning it. I'm like, that story, that imagery, that darkness, and allowing to really go there without all the nonsense that I felt like bogged it down as a video game could really make it like a really solid movie. But then that kind of made me go kind of spawning in a different direction. And I was like, who essentially tries to make movies and would almost be better suited towards that because of the nature of his games is David Cage. And I was like, Detroit as a movie, I feel like could do some really dope things.
Yeah, that's very true. Wow, even as a series.
Because some of the narrative kind of threads that his games make are obviously very cinematic in nature and stuff like that. But I feel like if he got to sit down and really just kind of craft out a world and a singular narrative to go towards, that he could kind of excel in that realm. Because again, it's one thing to kind of try to make games that take from movies, but it would be another thing to have made games that have taken from movies and then to go back to movies with what you've learned and to learn how to like take those risks and take those chances that video games allow for, where in movies you have this very fixed narrative and in games you have player agency. So what does that look like when you go into a movie? You see what player agency can, the wild results you can end up with player agency and how that would translate as a game. So I look at like David Cage and his ability to make games like Heavy Rain and maybe even something like Beyond Two Souls if it wasn't so convoluted and out of place in multiple different storylines and different timelines. Maybe that would serve better also as a game. So that's what my thoughts were for it.
No, that's actually really... I'm surprised I didn't even think of that. And it's funny because I did look... I was like, I saw like these games and I have them on my shelf and I just didn't think of it. And it makes sense because, I mean, for most of those games, he used, actors and way more than their likenesses. Obviously, he hired those actors to play these roles. So it is interesting that didn't even come across my mind. And that makes a lot of sense because those games are pure story. That's what really... It's not the gameplay of Detroit that really got you excited. Nobody wanted to play that. Let's not spoil it. That part you had to drag yourself as a half ripped up android collecting parts in the junkyard.
Yeah,
trust me,
thanks.
That gameplay wasn't extraordinary, but the meaning of it all, what that led up to, what that led to him being, Frankenstein together and seeing all the message and the storytelling and the characters is what really does stand out. So, that'd be exciting. That'd be really exciting.
Yeah, I'd like to throw his games in the ring there to be adapted or something like that. Now, obviously, if I had to choose one person to make a movie from gaming, it's obviously going to be Kojima. But yeah, David Cage would be next up.
Kojima.
Now that would be a wild movie.
And that's why I kind of wished when that rumor came up that he's like, I may not make a game next. I'm like, good, make a show.
I'm cool with that. I'll have no problem with that. Link up with HBO, make something crazy.
Anybody. I'm sure anybody would throw money at them. Hulu, anyone. Because
like, imagine if you just threw him like, you know, a crazy couple $1 million and just be like, yeah, make what you want. Like, imagine a show he'd make with his cinematic history. Because I don't know if you know, but like, if you go onto social media, like, he's like always studying like
huge
cinema and all these crazy stuff.
Huge movie buff. Woo. Yeah, and what I also like he always talks about how he loved Avengers and stuff like that, but he will find these like lower movies that people may not always talk about. Like, he loved Alita: Battle Angel, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's a super underrated movie, and he was like really loved it. And
I need to watch that.
Yeah, oh, it's pretty good. Yeah, you know, pre-corona he'd go. I don't know what theater he knew, but he knew certain theaters. Obviously, Japan's a whole different thing. Theaters that would show old movies, like he'd go watch classic Godzilla movies and really break it down. Luckily, you know, there's the Japanese version of his feed and there's the translated version, because I need to see what he's saying. And yeah, he's a super big movie buff, and I think that's why he takes so much care in these, like, in his games. You can kind of see that if you think about the original, all the Metal Gears, sometimes these big movie like cutscenes, you know, were directed like a movie set, and so that would be exciting to see him just make something full-fledged Unleashed.
Give the Silent Hill movie remake reboot to him. Just give it to him.
I always forget they're rebooting that movie.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I know Resident Evil is getting rebooted too, but I think Silent Hill is coming back too.
Yeah, I know. And so some pictures came out of the Resident Evil movie, and again, it's confusing because Resident Evil is making some Netflix stuff as well, and it's like the front of the police station from RE2. So it's
I see that they're going old school.
I'm like, okay. I'm like, what's going on here?
I have concerns about their approach, because I feel like they're gonna bump into the same weird issues that like when they tried to remake a Nightmare on Elm Street, where it's such a campy thing that if you try to make it serious, it just doesn't work. Like, it just breaks. And just Resident Evil is specifically old school. Resident Evil is so camp, and that's such a part of it. And the clunky dialogue, and the wild outfits, and the dogs, and like it's the giant animals of that one mansion. Like these are like iconic parts of like what make old school Resident Evil, you know, exactly what it is. And I just worry that if you try to make it too serious, you're gonna end up with the Mila Jovovich nonsense very quickly, right over again. We've seen that, and it didn't work.
Yeah, I always said that first Resident Evil movie was like right on the line with trying to make it the main, and then then it just went completely off hinge.
Yeah.
And
it was already a little too edgy, but it was salvageable by the first.
But don't worry,
it's just forget about it.
You now have Monster Hunter, which looks so faithful to its original work.
Well, I mean, speaking of Monster Hunter, that is something that brings me a great deal of pain. But nothing brings me more pain than the Atari VCS. This was the NeoVintage podcast. I am Jabrel, and I am with...
Hope you guys enjoyed. My name is Steve.
And we'll see you guys.
Take
Bye.
care.